Dolphin Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And how you feeling? I feel like this show's been a bit off the rails. Like, it's been great. It's been all over the place.
I feel even better now that I got my light on.
Oh, well, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to also call you Ant, because now we've established earlier in the show, we're not doing Anthony. We're going straight Ant here.
All right. I like it so far. At first, you were putting a lot of emphasis on the Ant. Now it's rolling off the tongue very smoothly now. Ant.
Thanks for making me sound incredibly uncool. You do it again, I'm just going straight back to Anthony. Because then you will be in trouble.
My bad.
Anyway, apropos of none of that, the Bills made a trade that you may have heard about. Stefon Diggs headed down to Houston. They're eating a gigantic $31 million cap number this year. And I think this is a trade that actually is good for both teams, which I know, and when I said that to you earlier before the show, you're like, you're going to have a tough time convincing me of that. But hear me out on this. The Bills' championship window is open as long as Josh Allen is Josh Allen, which we anticipate being not like one more year, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more years. He's got a lot of football left, especially if he can continue to be the type of passer that he is. You'd have to assume some of his running ability dies off a little bit, but unless he goes full Cam Newton where he takes one too many shots and his shoulder goes, Josh Allen's going to be a premier quarterback for the next bunch of years. Can it go sideways like it did for Cam and that one injury? Sure, but let's presume, as the Bills are, that we're operating with a 5 to 7 year window here. That means you do not have to be all in right now. And if you have to take one down year and dip into cap hell and just eat some stuff for a year to be able to be huge players next year and the year after and the year after, that's a smart move. And you just hope, hey, maybe, who knows, this year Josh Allen catches a heater and maybe the Bills could be in the Super Bowl this year. They have him. He is a single player contender. Is his job harder now without Stefon Diggs? Sure, but Diggs on the wrong side of 30. Production dipped last year, and he seems to be not the easiest guy to get along with in terms of locker room and culture. Diggs tweeting last night, who knows, maybe he knew he was getting traded, or maybe this is the reason they ultimately were like, get out of here now. Someone was tweeting about how Diggs or Allen can succeed without Diggs, and Diggs was like, are you sure? And now we're all going to get to find out. So long story short, it's a huge short-term hit, but in the long term, it creates a lot more flexibility. They know they've got to restock, and this helps open the runway because they do save over $18 million in 2025. Meanwhile, the Texans are kind of ready to win right now because C.J. Stroud is ready to go right now. He was an instant quarterback, just add nothing out of the draft last year, unlike almost anything we've ever seen in terms of production as a rookie, a legitimate MVP candidate in year one. And so thus you get that guy a stud. All of a sudden he's got Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, talk about 3 receivers all in the right spot. Nico's huge body type. Diggs is just your premier do-everything receiver. And then Tank Dell, this short area monster who just makes big catch after big catch. They got Dalton Schultz at tight end. Their defense is obviously great and should get even better. And they're much more in a win-now mode. And so getting a wide receiver on a big contract that you're trying to win with in the next couple of years, basically the rookie contract window before you have to extend Stroud, is smart. So I actually genuinely like this for both teams. And even if Diggs is on the wrong side of 30 and doesn't work out, it's worth the swing. It shows that you're invested. And you can, you move on from him if you have to, even after the year.
Okay, I think you might have convinced me a little bit.
All right.
But I just feel as though, because, again, it seems to me that people still think, the Bills are still a contender, having, blown up literally their entire roster. They lose Jordan Poyer. They lose Trey White. They lose Tyrell Dodson.
Here would be my question,
Diggs.
though. How many of those guys were still the caliber of players they were when the Bills, like let's say 2 years ago when they were the chief contender against the Chiefs? I would say none of them.
Yeah.
Like Poyer and Hyde, like those guys had taken a step back. They weren't as healthy.
Trey White
Diggs
also.
Yeah,
Yep.
White had a massive injury that definitely seemed to affect him. So did they lose those guys at their peaks, or did they lose the idea of those guys? Because I would tell you it's the latter, that they weren't getting the value out of those players anyway. That doesn't mean they've replaced them. And I think that goes to your point, where it's like, are they still contenders? Because what did they replace them with? But it's not just like letting them go this offseason. They had already lost them because they weren't as good anymore.
Yeah, but what about a Gabe Davis? I mean, Josh Allen literally lost all of his weapons. Gabe Davis is huge.
They've got Curtis now. What more could you want than Curtis Samuel? Current wide receiver 1.
I guess that signing sort of kind of makes more sense.
It does. But they definitely don't have the talent they used to.
Yeah.
But I think what they're doing is they're entering a different phase, right? Like, this is what happens when you pay the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You have to then get more out of the quarterback. You have to say, we're not going to be able to give to you premier receivers. We are, if we are Kansas City, going to trade Tyreek Hill, even though he's the best receiver arguably in football, because we're paying Patrick Mahomes to make everyone else look way better than they are. And so Josh Allen is going to have to turn Curtis Samuel into a stud. And Shakir and, they've got one more guy who's like a solid player. I'm blanking on the name. I think the other part of this is they are looking at maybe the old Patriots model of we're going to build through the tight ends. And we're going to have, obviously it was Hernandez and Gronk. Things went the way they went with that. But Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, those are their number 1 and number 2 weapons. And so they're going to build their offense that way. And I would imagine, leveraging Allen's running ability and getting some more running support and build through the O-line. They spent a relatively high pick on Osiris Torrance last year, who played a lot for them and played well. So, like, that's the plan if you're Buffalo, is we're going to build it differently. We're going to rely on Josh Allen to be great. And then, next year, if we need to supplement some parts of the offense, great. But I would assume that they try to spend heavier on defense, and that kind of follows the Chiefs model of, we're going to pay Chris Jones, we're going to pay some of these other guys, and make sure that we're really strong on defense. And they've also drafted remarkably well in the defensive backfield in Kansas City, so that you have enough to supplement Mahomes, and that's how they are 2-time defending Super Bowl champions.
Okay, maybe it's just me. I just don't think I have the utmost faith in Josh Allen to sort of kind of get the most out of what's going to be surrounding him. I think Mahomes, like early last year or even like 2 years ago, like he struggled, because he had either receivers dropping passes or, they weren't as dynamic and things of that nature. So I just don't know how things are going to go for Josh Allen, who to me got bailed out sometimes because of, he had so many weapons around him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's what
it's what Diggs was saying.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
And if not, then if Josh Allen suddenly is not as good as we thought Josh Allen was, that's a whole different discussion. But I'm pretty sure that Josh Allen is the second, third, or fourth best quarterback in the league behind Mahomes. And he's a top 5 guy. I'm pretty sure he's that good.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, he can get a lot out of those guys. Also, it's worth mentioning, like, this is the best receiver class ever in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
And so even for them at the end of the first round, could they get a dude? Yeah, they could. They could absolutely get a star type of wide receiver. So I think it's just it's math as much as it is anything else in terms of the contracts and everything. And they are, I think, more so. It's not me trying to convince you that they're going to be good this year, because I do think they take a step back this year based off their current roster. But it makes sense for them in the long term.
Yeah.
And I heard Dan Quinn say this on Kevin Clark's podcast when he was interviewed at the owners' meetings. It's like, every good team I've ever been a part of, it starts in the locker room. Good locker room translates to on the field. Can't win without it. And I definitely get the sense, based off Stefon Diggs' Twitter feed, that could have been a factor in this, where they are looking at addition by subtraction in their mind as well, as great as Stefon Diggs is as a receiver. By the way, you want to know who's snickering at all of this?
Who?
The Minnesota Vikings.
Yes.
Because they traded Stefon Diggs to Buffalo a couple years ago for a draft pick. That draft pick turned out to be
Justin Jefferson.
Sure it did. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You'll hear from some leading commanders, Sam Cosmi, Deron Payne, Terry McLaurin at the top of the hour, speaking on day 2 of phase 1 of the offseason. But before that, at the top of the hour, does anybody actually know what top of the hour means? A Hoffman Show investigation next.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.